Back in line, you dog! On your feet! Get them going!
And of course, I forgot to add myself to the thing. See what happens when I'm gone for a week. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever the case may be. Welcome to Cross Examinations Live, the Reconstruction Zone, where we are rebuilding the faith of those who have fallen away due to whatever circumstance. And look, those circumstances are sometimes filled with grief, which is kind of a segue. I'm trepidatious about bringing up my nephew who passed away. I made this for the funeral. I used my skills. I actually officiated at this funeral. Me and his grandfather. It's funny when you have a family of people who, my brother's an agnostic. His ex-wife was, or is, backslidden. She just says she's backslidden, and like she's okay with it. It's okay with being backslidden. That's okay. But wow, I don't want to jump right into this like in any kind of a depressive mood. I don't know. This just kind of is the way it's working out immediately off the bat. But I just had this epiphany. I was at camp all week. Awesome time. Micah's last camp. He's been in that youth ministry since 6th grade. Now he's in 12th grade. And this was his last summer camp. An end of an era. Which is I don't know. It was sad. What's up, Ryder? How's it going? I mean, it was sad and it was awesome. We almost won. The summer camps, they break them into 4 groups and then like they compete against each other. And honestly, he only ever won the first one. And I think it's because I'm on the team and they handicap my team. I hate to say it like that, but we have often been on the team that is just winning all camp until the last day. And then they kind of, they want to make everyone feel like they have a shot on the last day. And when you have a team like mine that was just dominating the entire camp, well, they let's just say they handicap you a little bit. I don't think they'll admit to it. And I don't want to bring my grievances here to the fellowship, but people complain every year. And the leader that is there now is doing the same thing, but he complained when, we all complained when we were part of the teams, but then you become a leader and you realize it's not about winning. It's about everyone having a shot that last day, right? So you kind of, but no one who's ever dominated wins. So you dominate the first 3 days, then the 4th day, someone else wins. It's always the case. But we came the closest. We lost by like 2 to 3 percentage points. Anyways, what's up, Ryder? You're the only one here. Where's it? I leave for a week and everybody just forgets about cross-examinations. Hey, get in here. Everyone. Unbelievable. Traitors, right, Ryder? Traitors, terrible. So I have this story about camp. I don't want to. Okay, maybe I'll just tell it now. Relating to my sweet beloved nephew who passed away. So it's very strange. It's the first time I'm the guy. I've been the guy at camp. Every time one of the leaders, and here's the thing with youth pastors and youth ministers, they're usually very young, right? I'm here lurking. Which means they're still kids in their brains because usually they don't even have kids of their own, right? And your brain kind of changes when you have kids of your own. Your brain really changes if, well, I'll get to that. So I was always one, that's a bad idea. That's a bad idea. And we don't, we do games and stuff at church. Usually nothing's terribly dangerous. But we go to camp, and sometimes these youth pastors who are ultimately just big kids themselves, although older than the high schoolers and the middle schoolers, they think, I would love to have done this when I was 15, which was for them like 5 years ago. Right? So they're still in that young, dumb stage, the age of people who are being drafted in the military because they think they're invincible. And then, thusly, they think these children are invincible and can just survive anything. And so someone was saying something at one of the group meetings. I can't even remember what it was. It was just talking about, oh, yeah, kids. And it's like, yeah, you break your arm, you bruise a thing, you do to this and this. And that just came out of me. I'm like, my nephew died at camp. And it just kind of like, but that's the first time I'd mentioned it. I've been doing this for 10 years. And that was the first time it crossed my mind. Is there a correlation here? Because then I thought about the date. This was 11 years ago, 2014. And this was my 10th year. So my nephew passing away, and it wasn't it wasn't conscious, but I think subconsciously it made me think, you need to dedicate time to spend with the kids, because I'm a workaholic. So I'll just work all the time. And then I try to give time to the wife, but it's like, it's so easy to neglect spending purposeful time with your kids, right? And I'm like, when I started going, volunteering, there were 2 other parents there. Like, there were 2 other parents that volunteered with the high school kids. And then I went down to junior high, and there was 1 parent, and it was in high school, it was a dad and a mom, but of different families. And then in junior high, I went back down to junior high. It was just 1 parent of one of the kids, or maybe 2 of the kids. And then me. And I don't know. I never really thought that much about that, but then it's just, I've just been thinking about this, and I was asking just the different kids. I'm like, how much time do you spend with your dad? And just about across the board, kids don't spend time with their dads, like dedicated, purposeful time. And I get it, because like, it just never dawned on me until this camp that it was because Cruz died, probably that subconscious thing clicked in my head. You need to dedicate time to spend with the kids. And since then, I've volunteered at high school and then junior high. And then, And it's really, I'll tell you, it's really hard during the rest of the week to find time to just dedicate to hanging out with the kids, except for Saturday nights. And that is why I also dedicate Saturday nights to go fishing, or game night. Right when it was winter and like the fish weren't biting, we were like, we should do game night. So dedicated time. And yeah, you always, oh, why did he die so young? Why did he die so young? I'm not saying this is the end all be all of why my nephew had to die so young. And this was kind of started at the beginning of this whole show, is like why people leave the faith is out of grief for losing somebody that they loved. But what good came of this? Well, for 10 years, I have dedicated purposeful time to spend with my kids that quite possibly I would not have, because it's obviously not common, because none of the other, there's like 130 high school kids in our youth group. I'm the only parent that volunteers time to spend with those kids. You know? And I think that, I mean, at least for my older two so far, one of the messages at camp was that Elijah had Elisha, and that Elijah couldn't just disappear without leaving a successor. Sorry, I kept thinking predecessor, but I'm like, well, he's the predecessor. Without leaving a successor. And like, how is your successor? Your successor should be able to, or should do better than you, right? What is it? The student should best the master. I don't know. Whatever the physiology is. Blah, blah, blah. And like my son, my oldest, and I don't know if it's just because he's such a, good. He's always had just such a servant's heart. But he went into, volunteering at Group 2. And then my daughter, she got out of high school and she went into volunteering at Group 2. Now, Isaac and Micah, I don't know. Isaac is just out of high school now, so he hasn't like jumped into junior high ministry or anything. But I've already got, out of the 4 of them, I mean, Jojo is special needs, so he's never going to be volunteering at church. But, so far I'm batting 500. That's not bad, right? Because most of the kids aren't volunteering either. Most of the parents didn't volunteer. Most of the kids don't volunteer. But I'm batting 500. Well, actually, I can't say I'm batting 500 because the other 2 just got out. So I don't know. I for some reason, I don't think I'll bat 1,000. But all that to say, what good came out of this horrible circumstance of my nephew dying? Could it be that? I mean, I don't want to say that's the reason he had to die, but God redeems the worst, right? He redeems the evil that falls on our life, the horrible circumstances. He redeems them. And in some small way, that Cruz passed away and my children got a father who dedicated time every week, at least one day a week, to purposefully be in their lives and in their spiritual growth and all that stuff. Now, I'm not going to say I'm like the perfect Christian dad who like sits down and does devotionals with them and every day. And I'm sure there's lots and lots of Christian parents who do that. And that might be better for the kids. I'm sure it is. But I don't know. I thought that was sort of a revelation to me this week at camp, because it's so funny that I'd never thought of it before. And then it sort of correlated to my subconscious reaction. Like I've always had long hair since I was 16 years old. I grew my hair out. And one year, in the year 2000, I remember sitting on my bed and just, I don't know, just being mad at my hair or something. And I was just like, why the hell do I have long hair? And I just grabbed scissors and I chopped it all off. I just grabbed it. And then I had this really stupid haircut where it was like my bangs were still long because it was behind me. Anyways, and years later, I was talking to my mom. I go, yeah, I don't know why I chopped my hair off that time. And my mom just looks at me like I'm stupid, like she always does. And she goes, you just lost a baby. And I'm like, holy cow. How have I never, ever made that correlation? Because I discovered, I thought after she said that, I thought about that. And I remember actually, you know what I remembered? I remembered Game of Thrones. That, Khal Drogo's people, they grow their hair out until they like lose in battle. And when they lose in battle, they cut their hair. But the reality is, in cultures around the world, people will cut their hair off in mourning. And I thought it was like a tradition thing, right? But astonishingly, it was a subconscious thing. It's not a tradition. Maybe it became a tradition because people just, I don't know. I don't know. But for me, I didn't even understand the correlation. It was just and then I related that sort of subconscious action, or an action based on a subconscious mourning, that got me to do that. And then I correlated that to, once I figured out the timeline on Cruz passing away and then me volunteering at youth group, I'm like, I'm pretty sure subconsciously that was the motivation for me dedicating time to the kids. I don't know. It was just a revelation for me. And have I ever read 1 Corinthians 11:14? I'm sure I've read it many times, but I don't memorize the chapters and verses. You're going to make me look it up, aren't you? All right. First Corinthians 11:14. Doth not even nature itself teach you that if a man have long hair, it is a shame unto him? You got to keep reading. But if a woman have long hair, it is a glory to her, for her hair is given her for a covering. But if any man seem to be contentious, we have no such custom, neither do the churches of God. I am joking. We'll see in a bit. He's kind of slow. King Bob, not helping. God is good, ladies and gentlemen. God is good. I don't know if that's going to be my last summer camp. Some of the younger kids were like asking me, they're like, don't retire. I hear you're retiring. Don't retire. Like they want me at the next camps and stuff. And I might. Because like my daughter, well, shoot, my daughter's going to have a young baby by that time. I don't know if she's going to be able to volunteer for camp. I might. We'll see how it goes next year. Because I'm still going to be volunteering for group this whole year because it's still his senior year, but I'm nothing but helpful. The question is, to whom? Justin the Rhino says, on topic, the Christian metal band Demon Hunter has a song they just released called Sorrow Light the Way. And he talks about his mother dying and how he dealt with it. It's a great song. Oh, wow. Sorrow Light the Way. Yeah, it's we talk about grief here on this channel quite a bit, right? Because we are because in the ReConstruction Zone, I said at the beginning of the show, which most of you guys weren't here, you bunch of slackers. Get to the back of the class. You came in late. Is that gum? I hope you brought enough for everybody. I saw that. It was good. Yeah, but actually, I was talking about this with my nephew last night. He came by. And he was talking about how, or we were talking about like, how Cruz passed away and how it was just sort of this random. It's just like one of the things, kids do goofy things, dangerous things that 999 times out of a million, nobody gets hurt, right? And Mike, I'm never on time, and yes, it is gum. Luckily, my family vacation this year coincided with your camp week. Oh, right on. You don't have a consistent schedule. Hey, it's noon-ish, 5 days a week, sometimes not on Monday. That's relatively consistent, right? Consistency was relative. Dang it, now I forgot what I was going to say. Why do I start reading the chat while I'm thinking of something to say? Oh, my nephew. So yeah, I was talking to my nephew. And so here's another thing. He was saying how his dad, my wife's brother, is super conservative, but when he's saying conservative, he means risk averse, right? Like super scared of going to he lives in Mexico and he never wants to leave anywhere outside of Acapulco. Is it Acapulco? I don't know, wherever. What they live in a tourist town. And here's the thing about Mexico. The cartels know that tourist money is the big money in Mexico, right? So like there was one time someone from one of the cartels kidnapped an American from a tourist town, and they drawn and quartered that dude. They freaking just eviscerated him, like literally. As a sign, it's like, don't mess with the money. Americans in tourist towns are off limits to the cartels, right? And so my brother-in-law will like never leave the tourist areas because it's like, we're safe here, we're not safe anywhere else, don't ever go. And then my nephew Justin, he's like I'll go wherever I want and I'll do whatever I want. And he's saying that, like, you raise your kid to be super super paranoid about getting hurt and all of that kind of stuff, it gives the opposite response where they want to fight against that and be high risk takers, right? And I'm like, bro, you have to realize where that comes from. That was your Uncle Timmy died when he was 16 years old, right? He was in a car accident. And so Your brother lost his best friend. Your dad lost his brother and his best friend, like, right as he was going into college, I think. And so it's like, dude, that kind of stuff messes with your head. That kind of stuff makes you not want to take those risks, right? And so it's like you have to have a understanding of why people are the way they are. Their dad is the same way. Their dad is very risk averse. It's probably why he never invested in Bitcoin, even though I've been telling him to since 2017. Anyways, but it affects, that level of grief obviously affects everyone differently. If you are just, how do I put it? If you're just a cultural Christian, no, it's not. Maybe that's not the right way to say it. If you don't have enough faith in God to trust that even bad things that are going to happen are redeemable, or that, God knows better than you do, or that your will isn't in line with his will and his will is the greater will, however you want to phrase it, if God not answering your prayer the way you wanted your prayer answered was enough for you to reject God, then you didn't really have him in the God position in your life. Your will, your desire trumped God's desire. I didn't want my nephew to die. Of course not. I begged and pleaded with God, because he didn't die right away when he got run over by that tractor. And I begged and I pleaded. My will was not greater than God's will. And when my other nephew got on the phone and was just crying his eyes out and asking me why God let this happen, I didn't have an answer. I might have a little bit of an answer now. A little bit of how that tragedy redeemed itself in me dedicating time that I might not otherwise have done. Thought a lot about my nephew this week. Hey, Dark Admiral. I'm surprised no one did the live quote. JJ says, if you love God, you accept his will, as scary as that is. Yeah. The funny thing is, it's like, what do you expect? What do you expect if you're a Christian? Do you expect to never deal with grief because you believe in God? I don't mean to laugh. It's such a ridiculous place to be. If the death of someone you love is enough to make you believe there's no God, or just get mad enough to God to reject him, you have a logic problem, because no one here gets out alive. No one. Everyone gets one lifetime. Sometimes that lifetime is 6 minutes. Sometimes that lifetime is 120 years. You get one lifetime. No one here gets out alive. And if you expect you're going to become a Christian and then everyone you ever love is going to become immortal suddenly. The only way that's true is if you think about immortality and being that they are resurrected unto eternal life if they, too, have accepted Christ or been a perfect human being or been too young to be accountable for their sins. Inside my what I made up for my nephew, I have Matthew 19. Then some children were brought to him so that he might lay his hands on them and pray, and the disciples rebuked them. But Jesus said, "Let the children alone, and do not hinder them from coming to me, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." I thought that was this is something Cruz wrote in one of his notebooks. He said, "When we think of ourselves in the future, we all usually see ourselves looking a lot how we are now. Middle-aged people, when they look back on their teenage years, have a feeling of regret and amusement." The wisdom of my nephew. Not leaning into our own understanding is sometimes a struggle. Yeah. Lean not into your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. It was a good week, though. It was a good week. It was interesting. I was like sitting at the campfire on the last night, right? The last night where they actually let you stay up later than the curfew hours. So there's a campfire circle, like a little Coliseum campfire thing at the camp. And, fire was lit. Kids were sitting around just singing songs. One of them had a guitar. Just so cliche. So awesomely cliche. And I'm looking around the circle at these kids who are in my son's grade, right? So this is their senior year. This is their last camp. And it's like 6th grade to senior year. I've been with these kids. I prayed with them. I did the sinner's prayer with one of the kids that was there. Ethan. His name's Ethan. He's a troublemaker, that one. No, but he's a great kid. And it was like so, what's the word where it's bittersweet, right? Bittersweet. It's like, because this is the end of their era, right? I went through them with middle school and high school. 7 years, the whole full run. And this is their last camp. And I was like, I'm here to chew bubblegum and kick butt, and I'm all out of bubblegum from the movie They Live. That should be clear enough for you. I get it, Bob. Kirby! What's up, my dude? What is up, my dude? But yeah, it's like the most exhausting, the most exhilarating, the most awesome week of the year. And if it happens to coincide with Comic-Con again, as it did this year, I just didn't go to con. I didn't even bother getting my badges this year in part because I knew this was a crossover week with camp. And then last year, I know if there's any crowd in heaven for doing this, I know I'm burning it. But last year, I chose camp over going to Bitcoin Nashville, where Donald Trump was speaking. Because spending this week with my boys, with my kids, who used to be, my daughter too. Actually, my daughter volunteers, so now she goes to camp. That it's just the most important week of the year for me. And I don't care if I'd made $1 million. All of that would have been very helpful. Or some once in a lifetime opportunity to sit the third row back from a Donald Trump speech. My kids are more important than that. My kids and camp is more important than that to me. So it's like, yeah, I'll never choose otherwise. Some of the best moments I've ever had with my kids were at camp, especially with Micah, because Micah's not a big talker. And so, I mean, I have prayed and cried with that boy at camp after camp. And it's just the best moments. So if you grow up, you have kids, and they go to youth group at your church, I would highly recommend volunteering at that youth group and just being there with your kids, for your kids, being there to be a mentor and a guide and a person in the lives of your kids' friends. My kids' friend group, they're like my other kids, which means the kids that have influence on my kids, I have influence on them. Which is just a great way to have extra influence on your kids. Plus, you can kind of gauge, who your kids' friend group is. Like, the whole adage of show me your 5 closest friends and I'll show you your future. Right? You don't get any of this time back. That is correct, Kirby. They've gone through it with support and knowledge of the Lord. It's the best thing to prepare them for the life ahead. Yeah. And make sure put your kids in kids group. And also that's another thing is like, I know a lot of people, that's where all the, abuse and stuff happens. It's like, okay, first of all, bullcrap. It's way more prevalent in schools than it is in any kind of church group setting. But if you're there, you can make sure none of that kind of stuff would ever happen. And you can kind of sniff out if anybody there is there with the wrong intention, right? Also, my church does the thing, the records. They check your records before if you're volunteering at youth group, you have to run a police check to make sure you're not a creeper. You've got another generation coming up with your grandchildren. Something to look forward to, Mike. November number 2. He's going to be so cute. I know. I can just tell already. He's going to be the most genetic mixed bag. He's going to be so cute. And then more to come. They got started early. I was just complaining about that on Twitter today. It's like, you guys, we're down to 1.6 in America. Guys, we're down to 1.6 kids per couple. We are not at replacement rate in this country. This is a problem. And I was just resenting. I was just irritated by the fact that our culture says, oh, wait until you're in your 30s to have kids and then only have 1 or 2. And it's like, kids are the greatest blessing in your life. I don't care if you're Bill Gates. At the end of Bill Gates' life, I mean, I'm not sure about him because he is kind of satanic. But generally speaking, at the end of when Bill Gates is at breathing his last, he's not going to want his computers around him or his vaccines or anything. He's going to want his one beautiful daughter and the rest of his ugly kids surrounding him. Have you ever seen the Gates family? There's like they all look like him or his wife, and then you've got this one just stunning daughter, and you're like, where did that come from? It's real. I think maybe mom had an affair, possible. I don't know, but yeah, one beautiful child, and then the rest of his goofy looking kids. But he's gonna want them and his grandkids surrounding him, and he's not gonna all that other stuff that he's done, all of his bazillions of dollars, is gonna be insignificant compared to the people that he brought into this world. I have a feeling she's not his. Weren't the Gates swingers? Were they? Ew, who would swing with them? I mean, I don't know about the swinger community, so I don't know. I don't know how many winners are in there, but she's the milkman's daughter. All right. Let me see. That's where the fun begins, I'm told. Oh man, my grandson is just the cutest little monster in the world. He is so adorable. Tanner says, the old people used to say back in my day, we used to say that we'd want what we want. We had a backbone, and now that's kids do it every day. They don't like it anymore. We used to say what we want. We had a backbone. Now that kids do it every day, they don't like it anymore. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Even when I was a kid, when I was in high school, I lived across the street from the elementary school I used to go to. When I was in elementary school, the idea of an elementary school kid swearing was anathema. This was in the 70s, right? But actually, late 70s, early 80s was my elementary school years. It was anathema. No one in elementary school swore. So much so that even if you said shut up, the class would be like, oh, I'm going to tell the teacher. How do I know that? Because the teacher left me in charge in second grade when she went to go to the office. And I was in charge and everyone was getting rowdy. So I just yelled at them all to shut up. And they got all, I'm telling teacher, you said to shut up. But the idea that someone in elementary school would swear? No, not a flippin' chance. And this was in the Bay Area. This is in, San Jose's. It's not the Bible Belt. By the time I was in high school, I lived across the street, so I don't even remember why I was at the school. I was just like walking around or something. I might have been going to the drinking fountain. There was a kid there dropping the F-bomb. And I'm like, this is like just a few years after I left, and now you've got kids there, or at least one kid, dropping the F-bomb at an elementary school. Well, it was after school hours, so I was like, but no, even when I was a kid, I was like, why are these kids swearing? I now grant you, by the time I was in high school, I was swearing too. But the kids, how did we lose the innocence so quickly? So freaking quickly. I don't know if that has anything to do with what you just said, Tanner, but I'm just on a train of thought right now. Congratulations. Didn't realize it was that close. Yes, it's very, very close. I left America. Take my 4 to Japan. Well, Japan needs it worse than we do, Kirby. I don't know what the replacement rate in Japan is, but I don't think it's like 1.2 or something like that. Japan's headed for a collapse because of how few people are repopulating. I'm not going to run around and randomly knock up women of childbearing age just because a statistic. You could become a Mormon. Get yourself a, little childbearing age second wife. Lamau. You forget it is the largest population generation dying. Bummers. Boomers? Yeah. Well, I guess that's accurate either way. I listened to that crap and very much regret it. I wish I had 4 kids now. We started out wanting 6. We got to 3 and we're like, there's a lot of kids. And then we somehow accidentally had 2 more. Figured it out eventually, though. So that's the thing. We started a little bit late. Like, my wife was 28, I think, when we had Elijah. I was 30. So, of course, we had lost the kid right before that, so it would have been a little bit earlier. Yeah, I wish we'd have started earlier too. But because, like, she wanted to not have any kids after 35 because of the health risks of having kids after 35. And then lo and behold, we have JoJo. I think she was 35 or 36. And JoJo special needs. Weird. It's like we fit the category right there. So all these women out there having babies at 40 and 50, high risk of having problems with your children. I mean, look, I love JoJo to death. I regret that he's going to miss out on so much of life. But the flip side of that is, like, he's a constantly happy kid. The ignorance of the special needs kids, where they don't think about they don't have the weight of the world on their shoulders, right? So they're just, like, always happy. It might be a nice place to be, honestly. But you got to marry them first, right? I have a feeling she's not the one to get swingers. Yeah, I've seen too many people I know go through the ringer, so none for me. Go through the ringer? What do you mean, go through the ringer? She's the milkman's daughter. Get a young one and leave her a widow. Tell her what I told my wife too. When I don't ever remarry. When I go, don't ever remarry. I'm good without kids, but I'm happy for those that do. Larry! How are my brothers and sisters today? Doing well, brother. Better than I deserve. Much better than I deserve. I had a very stressful situation that got very much more stressful yesterday. And then today it seems like it has been alleviated. Not 100% sure yet, but it seems like it, so I'm not going to get into it because it's very personal. Or more specifically, I don't want to deal with a woman to have kids. You just need the right woman. I'm the winner. I was told many, many times at camp, I'm him. And I've got aura. These are things kids say nowadays to respect people. You're him. You're so him. Bro, you've got aura. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Thanks. Mike, you and I grew up in very different elementary schools. Oh, really? Really? And you're old. Yeah, shut up was a no-no in my family as well, akin to swearing, right? Of course, all the swearing was on the playground. No, not even there. No. I was raised by an Italian father that's a trucker for a construction company. I had no chance. Swearing just comes naturally to me. Well, swearing came naturally to me too. After I every other word, every other word. Um, it took me after I became a Christian. It took me like 3 years to wean myself from swearing. Internet, TV. Ba-ba-doo-ba-ba, I don't know you. Part of the problem is adults that find it amusing when these kids let it rip. Part of it's a huge part of it, parents swearing in front of their kids. Huge part of it. My kids don't swear. Eden, she would never swear in front of me, but I'm sure in her high school years she dropped a couple words. But she's a very, how can you say ass? It's in the Bible. Ass is in the Bible. Movies, comic books, music. Yeah, but it's parents. If you're a parent and you swear in front of your kids, you're telling your kids it's okay to swear. Same way every generation before us. Huh? South Korea is already doomed with their replacement rate. Yeah, so is Japan might be the worst, like, in the world. I took my little brother to school, and in his second grade class, he had this Mexican kid with a full Mario mustache. Laughed my ass off. The little brother told me they weren't allowed to. Make fun of him. I'd go to Japan for a week, but it would be a sin to just go to make babies, so probably not. He has a condition. I was like, a condition? What's it called? Being born? I've been trying to be better about watching my language. It's trashy, and I know better. Yeah. I saw a little reel about this guy, there's a Christian guy saying, yeah, I'm a Christian, but I swear, it's whatever. I don't think it's any big deal. It's cultural, blah, blah, blah. And the woman, the gal he was talking to, she said, do you know what when Peter was rejecting Christ, right? Is the first time he rejected him. Obviously, he was scared to be. He was watching him get slapped around by the Pharisees and whatnot, and he rejected him. And then the second time he rejected him, and then the third time when he was trying to completely disassociate himself from Jesus, he started swearing. And the guy's like, I vow never to swear again. I somehow accidentally had 2 more, Mike. Yeah, I figured it out. I figured it out eventually. When I was a kid, I wanted like 20 kids. Then as I got older, the number kept dropping. Now my wife and I have 2 kids, and I'm good. I would like to adopt when I can eventually afford it. I always wanted to adopt too. I really, really did. In fact, when my wife and I first got married, I was saying that we should foster kids. And you know who was against me and my wife fostering kids? Her parents. Her parents were like, why would you want to foster kids? I'm like, I want to foster kids. What's the problem here? I mean, we were super young too, so I don't know if they would accept that. We did have an exchange student though. We were like 23 and 25, and we're like, hey, we want to host an exchange student. And like we went to the place to do it, and they're like, "You're like, 5 and 7 years older than the exchange student." And I'm like, "I don't know, whatever." And they're like, "No, we can't do it." And then they didn't have enough host parents, so we ended up hosting an exchange student from Japan. I wonder what happened to her. I just don't think I'd be a good dad. I used to want kids, but I got a dog once. I couldn't take it, had to get rid of him. Well, that's why you get a wife. It's funny. Tanner is the guy who's taking over for the current youth pastor. His name is also Tanner. And he gave a speech. He's been married to his wife for about as long as my son has, right? And I'm like, "When are you having kids?" And they're like, "No, not yet, no." And then like before camp, he was giving his little message, and part of it was he didn't have a dad growing up, and he was deathly afraid of having kids because he didn't know how to be a dad because he didn't have any role model for being a dad. And I'm like, this guy has been volunteering for 7 years from junior high till now. As long as I've been, not as long as I've been for 10 years because he was in high school group he's my daughter's age. And I just told him after that message, I was like, "Tanner, the thing I learned from my dad was how not to be a dad. The one thing I know about you is you're going to be an awesome father." And he's like, "Thanks." He's like, "I really needed to hear that." So Tanner, actually, I don't know you as well as I know the other Tanner, but I'm sure you'd be an awesome dad. It's just love and time. And if you had a bad father, or even if you had a not very attentive father, just learn what not to do from that. JoJo's happiness is a blessing. When he used to pop into your stream, it always made me smile. Nice. Through the ringer with divorce, child support, and all the drama that comes with it. Not to mention the poor kids. Yeah, freaking divorce, man. Well, that's why you gotta pray for the right wife, man. I didn't want any kids without marriage with someone I thought it would last with, mainly for the kids. Yeah, that's very, very Tree Goblin. I'm not highlighting that. From what I understand, Japan is actually better than most Asian countries with the replacement rate. Really? Really? Swearing is cultural, not biblical. Biblical swearing was using God's name in a bad manner. It is cultural. That it doesn't mean it's good. It says the Bible says not to let anything vulgar come out of your mouth. That might be very subjective, but it is still a guideline. If it's vulgar in your culture, don't let it come out of your mouth. Well, that's got some weight to it. Thanks, Mike. Hopefully that sticks in the back of my mind about swearing, right? Demon Hunter just dropped an announcement for their new album, There Was a Light Here. I don't think I'd be a good dad either. LOL. And the wife thing is off the table. Why is the wife thing off the table? You just don't like women? Zeta, I get it. My biggest concern as well, I would have been a good dad. Now, I don't think so. But it's a shame, but it is what it is. Well, you could always volunteer and just be a mentor to someone who needs a dad. Divorce is a wood chipper. Nobody makes it out. I know. I know. Divorce is breaks my heart. I mean, I'm the child of divorced parents. Y'all know that already. So, my wife I told my wife before we got married that I didn't believe in divorce, and the only way I could see it is if one of us were unfaithful. Well, that's the only way. That's the only biblical reason to get divorced, right? You can work anything else, and you can work that out too. It's not ideal, but you can. And I would. I mean, I would be. It's gonna sound dumb. I would be a cuck for my kids. All right, if somehow something happened with my wife and somebody else, I would stick it out with her. I would forgive her. I don't care how embarrassing it is. I would be there for my kids to maintain this family. There's nothing more important to me than my kids. I mean, my wife and my kids. But if you had to take that wife part, the happy, awesome relationship we have part, and diminish it with something like that, but maintain a family for my kids, I absolutely would. I'd die for them. Without question, without hesitation, I would die for my kids. So would I be embarrassed for my kids? Yeah, I'd be embarrassed for my kids. Whatever. That's an impressive commitment. Like, well, I'm not going to find somebody better anyways. My wife's awesome. So I know there's some women I look at and I'm like, okay, I'd divorce her in a second, but no, I picked a good one. I got the best wife. Sorry, everybody else out there, but mine's the best. So, I was in uni for game dev, and the whole Gamergate thing happened. Been dealing with feminists ever since. Get away! No, never, ever, ever date a feminist. Never date a feminist. Find a trad virgin. Feminists are no. Get away. Run as fast as you can. I'm not saying it's good to swear. I'm only saying it is only vulgar because a person or culture interprets it to be vulgar. That is correct. It is subjective. The words and the meanings are subjective, but the intent is objective. Get it? Abuse and or unfaithfulness are the only reasons I would justify divorce. That's generally the Christian perspective, yeah. On a lighter note, I've got more kids wanting to go fishing. It's part of the reason I've been reining in the language. I've got to be an example. Oh man, that was the great thing at he's not listening. So my son Micah, we were doing the family time, and we were talking about like different things and like raising our hands during worship. And I was saying how like, man, it took me years to like get comfortable with raising my hands during worship. And Micah volunteers to speak, which in and of itself. But he actually says, he's like, yeah, I just started raising my hands because I realized that I'm a senior now and I have to be a good example for the younger kids. And I was like, oh my heart. Oh my heart. See, moments like that. I couldn't ever give up a moment like that for anything. Zeta says, finding a virgin over the age of 14 in my area is like finding a unicorn. Go to church. Go to church and find a girl who grew up as a faithful Christian. Most girls my age turned hoe in the middle school. Can't imagine it's better. It's better in church. It really is. It really honestly is. My kids are virgins or were virgins till they got married. Fact. They wouldn't even be in a house alone together. Like if they got to the house before anybody else was in the house, they would wait outside. They wouldn't, both Elijah and Eden, they would not be alone with a boy. or a girl. There are non-hoes in church, believe me. Some would consider the word cuck is vulgar, but your intent is only known by you, but Christians claim things are vulgar despite intent. Who thinks the word cuck is vulgar? I've never heard that before. I think I've mentioned this before. The church girls sleep around the most. Maybe at a freaking church where they don't actually believe in God. Nah, not. I don't know where you're from, but definitely not. I mean, I grant you, not every girl in church is a born again, faithful believer. That is a good one, Mike. Your boy saying that. I had a couple of moments with my kids. I walked by the living room, saw my oldest daughter with both baby boys on her lap, and she was reading. Ah, that's so sweet. All right, well, we are well over time here. Thank you all for being here, for me running down my church camp experience. It was fun. But that's it. I got stuff to do today. So God bless you. See you all on the next exciting episode of Cross Examinations.